Welcome to the Polymaticast, episode 15 for April 23rd, 2017. Today's topic, home improvement. Hey John, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing, Alan?
I'm doing okay.
You're doing okay? Getting a little bit more relaxed after all those weeks of stress and stuff?
Yeah. Well, the one thing is I have a roommate who is going back to his day job during the summertime. So I have a little more quiet time to myself. So I think that's an advantage. And waking up and then being able to like Minecraft and, let things run in the background or game or program a little bit, which is something I did last night, which is odd because I never do that. And listening to the podcast, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, getting some more time for yourself in. That's also always
great. just not being, I don't know, just having control of what's, around me is always good. So,
well, May and April are usually the time of year where you get like lots of days for long weekends. So there's Easter. So we had the Friday before Easter. I took off, and then we get 2 Easter days. So we get the Sunday and we get Monday. Mm-hmm. So we get like a 4-day weekend. So basically a small vacation. And then next week, or actually this Thursday, it's the King's Day. And then the day after, I took off because like another 4-day weekend. So I got lots of time these days. Actually, not really lots of time because they all get taken up by projects and things. But but at least I get some more relaxation time instead of stressing all the time.
The way that worked out is on OG. We are going through heavily on doing the season reviews. So there are 40 new anime episodes, whether they're shorts or whether they're full length, or we call ONAs or just one-offs. There's at least 40 of them. So it's one thing for me to watch these 40 things and spread these out in shows, but you got to watch this stuff to get your first impression and write some notes down and whatever. And then when you have a group of 4 other people that you got to coordinate with, this becomes like eating up my whole Saturday plus most of my Sunday, and then plus a very long recording, and then eventually long editing. So that just rolled right in. So what happened is I had my Friday off for Easter, and so what I did is I totally used my day to kind of rest a little bit more than usual, and then because there was some quiet time more than usual, I sat there and I watched 12 hours of anime, and that was just half of what I needed for that 1 week.
40 episodes of 40 different anime sounds like, well, hell.
It can be. I'm a programmer, right? And so I deal with also data a lot, so I see trends. And so you pick out trends pretty quickly. And every season, every quarter, or every year, you can tell there's always some kind of weird theme. And that's the thing we all seem to kind of complain about. Sometimes it's all these shows with stylish big old scissors. And sometimes, it's about clothing. And this time it always involves something about high school kids and magical conspiracy or magical, they all have powers, but the adults don't. It's always something, there's always something there. You can always find the trends. So my Easter wasn't really relaxing. It just made it less difficult to get through the starting point of that process. So.
Yeah, well, you at least got some rest in.
Yeah, it made it less worse to have that extra day. So that's good. But it just happened to be the time frame that was the same thing. Yeah.
Well, I'm gearing up for some remodeling in my house to do some. I have a maker space, tiny little room, like maybe 2 meters by 5-6-ish. So this is a small room, just enough for some 3D printers and some storage stuff. But I'm thinking about taking everything out and just redecorating the entire room, putting all racks and stuff. but it kind of goes into the today's topic. So I think we should get started with that.
Okay. So where do you want to start? So you own your place.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a lot more freedom to do what you want.
And so do my neighbors. Thank you for the drilling, by the way,
Yeah.
dude upstairs.
So that's the advantage. I mean, that's a disadvantage of living around other people that when
Yeah.
you're like in a condo, right? So do you have like an HOA or anything where there's like an authority in the building that says you can't do certain things in your building?
Well,
Or in
we
your
do,
place?
but it doesn't really cover drilling like the entire day. I think one of the guys just moved in,
Right.
and I think he's been drilling like constant every weekend, which is annoying. But I'll get him soon enough when I start
Well,
remodeling
you know what?
that room.
You never, oh, well, that. But, I mean, when you hear someone doing construction work like that, it makes you curious. What are they doing?
Yeah.
Makes you want to maybe go introduce yourself and say hello, say, hey, I'm your neighbor. Aside from making them consider that there's a person near them they're making a lot of noise for.
Hmm.
But to that point, they might like, oh, yeah, man, I got a drill. Do you need help drilling lots of holes in your room? Like, it might be their thing. You never
But
know.
I think maybe his style is more like a wall filled with holes. I think that's his thing because I don't know. I counted them as like hundreds of holes in his wall by now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Well,
really.
maybe he's drilling or strapping in like bookshelves or racks or
Yeah,
something.
probably.
Yeah, or TV stuff. Like TVs have
Yeah.
heavy mounts on them.
Yeah.
So especially when you just kind of stick them to the wall, you need to put probably a good 16 screws in usually, or some primary screws in to
Yeah.
put the mount up to make sure you can hold that much weight.
Well,
Load it up on the
I didn't
wall.
have to drill that many holes when I got moved in here like 4 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. Has it been 4 years? No, it's almost 5 years. Yeah, almost 5 years.
Mm.
So, yeah, I didn't have to drill that many holes, and that was done pretty fast. Just maybe I don't really need that much modification to move in somewhere. So it was
Right.
just, lots of noise.
My neighbor, when I was here in the first few years, there was a lot of that. It was clearly he was renovating his basement, and so spending a lot of time when I'm editing or spending a lot of time down here for recording because I kind of made this sort of into the studio space. Um, that was not opportune for recording, of course,
No.
but it was kind of annoying because I could feel, especially he's got 3 kids and they were younger, and now they're older, several years later, but they were very rowdy. It felt
Yeah.
like they were badly dancing a lot or wrestling a lot. And they're 2 girls and one boy, and the boy I think is the middle child. So it's not like there are 2 boys always wrestling or whatever. But it felt like you could feel pound, 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 pound. And then the parents who couldn't deal with it would go outside, back to the deck, and then would blast music in, whatever. English is not their first language. So you'd hear variations of a song you recognize in a whole different language. And so they're not only noisy, but then the kids were being rowdy all the time. This went on for a few years. And it wasn't a problem that I felt the pound or heard the pound and they were being really noisy and it felt like really inconsiderate. But the other respect of it is I could feel the pounding. Literally, you're sitting in the couch in the middle of the room and you feel a thump. So I don't know if that's something says about like sharing walls and where I live or whatever. So I think that's one of those disadvantages when you live in a concrete box or something where you share a wall. That's part of the disadvantage of having neighbors who are literally like a foot away through some concrete.
They don't own it, right? They rent.
No,
Correct?
they own it. So
Okay.
most of the people here own their townhouse.
Yeah.
I just happen to be renting from the person who owns the townhouse. This was
Okay.
like their first home, and then they had a kid, and they decided that they wanted a new house, so they didn't sell this one for whatever reason, and they got in a situation where they rented it. and they rented it to two different, I guess, people, renters, for in 2 different years. And by that third year, I showed up,
Yeah.
and so I've been here, I think, the longest for them.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they're not.
But you can't really modify your house, right?
Well, I don't. And I rented a house for over a decade before. So I was under what one of the advantages that I had there was I had drop ceiling tiles in the basement in
Yeah.
that house, even though it was an older house. They finished the basement, whether it was really great or not, but considering for its time, it was okay. And I was able to run like cables and stuff right up in the
Yeah.
drop ceilings across. So I didn't really. There was a point where eventually I had this mass of cables come right down a corner of the room, and they would just right behind the speaker and went straight down, and then went to the computer area. And so I made my little NASA sort of mission,
Your
kind
mission
of
control.
wall of mission critical wall of monitors and computers connected over to the big TV and the surround system and everything. But it was me not trying to modify, and it was a good habit to instill in me because it makes me consider how can I do this without creating physical disruption to the building.
Yeah.
And I think even if I owned a very expensive house, I would probably still consider it the same way. It makes me want to embrace more wireless stuff, right? And think about it from that perspective. How can I do this with minimal impact to the room? And then more importantly, the second you start mounting crap to your walls, and it's not easy to change that format, right? You
Yeah.
decide you spent all day mounting something to your wall, and you realize, it'd be better is if that thing was there and that case was over there. And the second you start destroying your wall,
Yeah.
you spend a lot of
Just keep
time
going.
fixing it. Yeah. So maybe that's what your neighbors do it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So, but you have like a studio in your basement, right? That's where you're sitting right now.
Yeah, that's
Do you
where I'm
ever
sitting right now.
considered putting in like audio dampening stuff, like foam on the walls or something, or like maybe panels or something?
Right, yeah, I have. And in more recent years, I think a lot of that is they have what it used to be is if you put that stuff on there, when you try to peel it off, even if you did it very carefully, it would still take your drywall down.
Yeah.
So they a decade plus later, they have come up with like adhesive solutions and buying those foam egg crate things. It's like,
Yeah.
for like $30-40, you can buy 16 panels. It's really inexpensive nowadays.
Yeah, but attaching it to your wall can be expensive.
Right. And so, but you just put the adhesive spray on, and if you do it right and you get the right spray, it can be easily removed and scraped off without creating much disruption to your wall. So my consideration for that is to really soundproof this room, I need to do something a little more than the egg crates. They do help. They do help in reflection, but I really need to absorb all the external noise and keep
Yeah.
the noise that's being created around the microphones in. Right?
Yeah.
And so how do you box yourself into an open room like this, and not do that where then lights become an obstruction and heat, you close out the sound and you kind of close yourself into a box. And now you have heat problems.
Well,
So-
there's like
yeah.
giant boxes you can buy for inside a room where you can just build it inside a room,
Right.
like a room in a room, and then you put yourself in that, and that's like soundproof.
Right. So the
can do that.
easiest thing that no one tells you when you're building a studio like in your home is that, they go, well, I got all this room in my garage. I'll just take this big old concrete box and I'll just, with all these bricks or whatever, and I'll just record here. And they find out it's the worst place ever.
Echo.
Yeah. So if you're doing video, you need something above your 8 feet. You need that extra space to be able to mount lighting rigs and stuff. Otherwise, they're going to be on stands and in your way and reducing your area and your space. If you're dealing with audio, one of the tips is if you're a person who records audiobooks, You can absolutely pad up with the acoustic foam a small closet, but just make sure you understand where that location of that closet is in the rest of your house or your apartment. If it's more center in the building and not attached to your noisy neighbor, and then you enclose it in, you can get a really good clean sound out of that. So when I stuck this thing here, I put all the engineering gear against up one of these walls, which is just an enclosure close off for the part of the basement that's like where the heating is and a lot of the plumbing and stuff like that. So it's separated from the actual base foundation walls, a good several feet. And then all the mics are sort of in a center vein of this room, which they're all away from all the walls. So if the heater kicks in, you can kind of hear it on these mics, but you don't hear it much, right? So when I did all this work, I did it with the consideration of turning it into a studio. So the way I was handling the audio issues is I stuck it in the most center part of the room where it made sense.
Well, you did it in your previous house too, right? So.
Yeah, I did that too. Yep, and I did it intentionally. I mean, there were better places for me to do that. I just, normally we go as, well, you could just put a center line down in a small room and stick everybody in it, and boom. But it's like, nope, too close to the heater, too close to everyone walking in the door, too close to the steps, too close to that, too close to the garage. And so I stuck it in the most inconvenient place. But the basement was being used for anything other than watching TV and, and that. And it was my computer office too. So...
Did you recently installed some LEDs, some Philips Hue lights, right? Are they just the LED strips, or actual also the lights?
So I have one LED strip that was gifted to me. It's it's that expensive $90 color strip. Got that at during the holidays, so that was a really nice gift. Most of the lights have been replaced in the house with Hue bulbs. I'm looking at 6 that are down here that is on my eventual list to go ahead and replace. I have a couple here which aren't normal standard light bulb sockets. These are special small lights, so they can't be replaced. And then there's a whole bunch of light sockets that have those little candle lights. Then again, they're smaller sockets. Hue doesn't make any replacements for them. So anything that's a floodlight or a normal standard light here in the U.S., I've been able to swap out. I have these last 6 that need replacing, and I recently put 4 color ones upstairs, which are also floodlights.
Well, they can for Artemis too, right? Did you hook it up yet?
So I intend to do some programming, which I started a little bit last night. I did some cursory effort. There are 6 spotlights, floodlights, downlights, basically, upstairs. And so I bought 4 of them. The problem is those color light bulbs are about as expensive as the normal standard light bulbs are $50 a pop in the U.S. You're just buying the white bulbs, or ambient bulbs, basically white bulbs. You can get like a 2-pack for like 20. You can get like a 2-pack for $25, about $12.50 in U.S. dollars. So it's not unreasonable when you realize, oh my God, I got so many lights in the house. I have 20 of them connected into the house. So
I have. Let me think. I have one here, one in my art room. Then there's 2 in the hallway. So I have one in my bedroom. So 5. I give 5 Philips Hue lights.
Mm-hmm.
I've got them hooked up, but I don't have them. I have them hooked up to if this and that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have them hooked up to something like Google Home or Alexa or something, because it doesn't exist here yet. So
does Google Home not exist in the Netherlands?
You can get the app, which is basically what used to be Google Now,
which can do the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know how to hook it up to.
It's actually not hard.
I'll figure it out. But
you can just connect it directly up to the Philips Hue, and then you can say, turn off my lights. You can say, okay, Google, and
Yeah, I don't know if it actually want to hook that up. It
I
sounds like a recipe for disaster. I already got it hooked up to if this and that kind of works.
mhm.
And I have like set up timers for like turn it on at like sunset,
Right,
turn it
yeah.
off at midnight. So yeah, that kind of works. The only thing that actually I'm really bothered by is the light switches. That's kind of the one thing that I really hate about these things because you can't really use your light switches. You have to replace them with the touch things.
Yeah, so
If you
you
got one of
can.
those,
I didn't do that. No, I'm not replacing any of the light switches. I am either controlling it through the app, which is again perfectly fine for me, and I have trained my roommate to use it to turn lights on and off in the house,
yeah.
by way of Alexa,
Oh, okay.
which works for him for the most part. But he does default into flipping switches in his bedroom, so it
Yeah.
looks like he's left his light on, even though I know he just kind of. You can just turn on. You can use them like normal lights. Just flip your
Hmm.
light switch on.
Well,
Um,
I'm thinking of getting one of the. I have one of them in my kitchen, so I have like a 3 button where I can like switch between 3 different modes.
mm-hmm.
I want to get a few more of those around the house. They don't require batteries because they're
Right.
powered by the touch. So if you
Yeah, yeah.
push them in, then they get the power, then they do their thing.
The kinetic energy or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
So I need to get a few more of those and then put more lights in, and then I can actually replace the light switches or
Right.
just put them above them. That's fine. That will work. That's
Yeah.
the only thing I hate about these things because they you either need the app or you need something hooked up to the app or you need those extra light switches, which costs some more money, right?
Sure.
So,
I hear that. I hear that argument a lot, and it becomes this conversation, which I don't want to be too much of a tangent, but there was a video a long time ago. It was about like marketing and whatever. Used to play quite a bit, and it points out this thing where the way TV advertisement and commercial system works in the U.S. was they had 50 years to build this sort of beast of a profit machine of how they charge for TV advertisement stuff like that. And so the reason that these companies are being so disrespectful is because they've built this sort of false profit machine, and they don't want to have that the same thing doesn't reflect in their minds, right? As a one to one because of the internet. But the internet stuff is doing better ratings than a lot of TV stuff here in the U.S. So that analogous to me is the same kind of thing with light bulbs. Is we have this built system where the economy of scale has been so established for so long, it's just pure profit for the people who make these light bulbs. And there's very little R&D that goes in, or the R&D is so inexpensive by comparison to what it was when everyone started. So yes, everything is dirt cheap to keep doing it that way, and you pay less to buy your $3 bulb instead of buying a $8 bulb. That is true. However, that bulb will burn out for you on the average in 3 years versus 5 or 6 years. And oh, by the way, you spend $6 to $8 a year on that instead of the dollar it does for for an LED bulb. So
hmm.
it's really just the business terms are really it's a capital expense versus an operational expense. And most people look at the capital expense and they don't think about the general do the numbers. What's the math? Well, that
Hmm.
bulb's going to last longer. It's not going to generate any heat. It's way more power efficient. It's going to reduce my bill a tremendous amount. And oh, by the way, I have much better granular control over it. I can
Hmm.
dim it if I want. I can be on vacation and realize my roommate's leaving stuff on and turn it off remotely. I have better control over it. And the only
So
difference
like he
is,
runs into a door.
yeah, and so the only difference is instead of me paying $4 a bulb that burns out in half the time, I pay $12.50 for a bulb that's way more efficient. And
Yeah.
then I'm almost yielding out about the same amount, at least in the first year. I'm basically it's basically paying for itself. So I mean that I put some thought into doing it. I didn't look at everyone else got. I didn't do that. I looked at what's the value proposition of this,
Yeah.
and I thought that had strength, and so I went with it. Now the thing is, $50 a pop, and I'm not gonna do color lights everywhere. I only did
Yeah.
it in a few
Well,
places.
the white lights from you are also not. They're not that expensive. You can like for $50 you have like a 3 pack. So
Right. Yeah, you can get them now. And so that's perfectly fine. So after the burn in on time, these things will get less. And I don't know what the result is at the end of the year. Am I spending less money? No, it's hard to tell because the way I'm getting billed with my power is they're taking advantage of something, right? They're always, you know, they do projections versus actuals and stuff like that, and you got to yell at them and remind them not to do that, and they default back in their system to doing projections. So, like, you get your real power readings is hard to tell, from. But
mm.
that's my problem. That's not, will you save money? Yes. You go do the numbers, yes. Um, I found a guy who did the actuals. He literally did the calculations and did all the projections, and he showed that he was saving money.
Mm.
Um, you know, about a year or 2 years in. Um, if I could find that video, I would immediately give it to you at a Polymatic link, but I don't have it. I'd have to dig around in YouTube for a while to find it again.
Mm.
But yeah, no, I mean, I did my research before I did it, so sorry to go on a freight train about that. I mean, have you? What was your need to switch to do that home improvement? What was the need to switch to this Philips Hue?
I'm a nerd. I like tech stuff.
Yeah,
It was
and
basically my entire
yeah,
reasoning for getting those.
and that was a sell for me too. Before Philips Hue really came into their own and had a system. I mean, what Philips Hue is
Well,
what?
I still have the old bridge, right? So I don't have the new
Yeah,
one yet.
yeah. I bought the new one. I actually bought a second starter kit. Uh, yeah, and so I have a second bridge, which will be good. I think at least the second generation or third generation bridge will support up to 50 devices,
Hmm.
which includes your switches and or combination thereof, motion sensors and or bulbs.
Hmm.
So I got 20 now, and I will. My plan is um, to buy two more colors, and then buy four, uh, downspout, floodlight, daylight ambient ones, which are cheaper. Right, you can get two for $50. So
Hmm.
I just need to put another $300 out at some point somewhere down the line, and then that will complete about all that I can do in the house. So when I come down in the basement and saying,
Turn on
Alexa,
basement.
basement on, I can say Alexa, studio on, and all the lights will go on for me. Um, so that, God, God forbid I have to walk 100 feet over and flip a switch on.
But it's good to be lazy in that regard because you
Sure,
can reduce the amount of stuff you need to do, which saves you time and allows you to get more stuff done
but
for
the
other projects, right?
the power is the integration, right? So I did a trigger for if then this that, so that if I set a timer with Alexa and I'm cooking or I'm doing something, I can go Minecraft for a few minutes, go back and it will blink certain set of lights for me to get my attention. So if I'm listening to something else and I don't hear it, if the lights are blinking, okay, great. Um, the the power, the value proposition isn't uh, the Hue Labs thing where I can make the living room look like it's candlelight or rainbow colors. Like that's not a value prop. That's neat. It's cool that you can, and I'm glad that they care enough to make the control systems better and more rapid. I love that. I like that. I
Hmm.
see the R&D value in that, and they're just showing you some cool stuff that you can do with it. But ultimately, that isn't the important component for me to spend a lot of money. When you look at it as a whole, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, these things are expensive. Just looked
Yeah,
up the prices for the new U light bulbs, like just the white ones, like
yeah.
$50 a pop. This is euros.
Okay, euros. No, here in the U.S., you can get the standard old bulbs.
Yeah,
You can buy like a 3 pack for like $50.
yeah.
You can get a 2 pack for like $25.
Well,
Um,
there's the old set you can get for like $75 for like two.
mm-hmm.
So I have to look into that. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to buy bulbs that are gonna be obsolete in a year because Philips decides, well, we're not gonna support those anymore,
No,
which is it's kind of like the big problem. I had to get the new app because the old app apparently every time I wanted to start it, it said, hey, you have to update. You have to update to the
hmm
new app. You have to go to the new app. You have to go to the new app.
Oh, so I didn't have that problem.
No,
So,
you got the new bridge, so you didn't get the old app. So I had to
oh, I
install the old
got you.
app, right?
I
So
got you.
well,
So
the old bridge still works, but
you can
it,
buy them
that's kind
separately.
of I know.
Yeah.
And the old bulbs will work with the new bridge. The thing is though that if you invest in something like this in your house,
hmm
you don't expect it to, um, be done in a week.
Right.
Now,
Sure.
um,
You can do these things.
if you look at the stuff that IKEA is doing, they're doing some IoT things too.
hmm
They're doing their own light thing. Now
But
I don't
the
know how long they will last, but
no, they often fad. So I've
yeah.
looked at their LED stuff, and even though they're cheap,
Mm.
they're not really anything better than they're a little more in a stylish package compared to you go and buying something random out of China, right, through Amazon or something like that,
Yeah.
or eBay, I guess. So it's about one step away from that. So you spend $40 at IKEA, and you could have spent $15 for a 500-meter roll, right? And so, I mean, that's really the only difference. I think there's totally a lot of value of putting like light strips wrapped around the sort of the lip of that's like above your kitchen cabinets, and then hitting a switch and having
Yeah.
all the lights go on. Like that is totally that's baller, and it's also really useful. If you have a workshop where you need light over your space, but you also need the cabinet above, like
Mm.
that's awesome stuff. That makes sense for those $25 things, and the little maker in you figures out how to rope all the power systems together and get it all like hidden up there so that you can hit a physical power switch and all the things physically go on. Like that is totally that's a a home improvement thing you can do for yourself. Um,
Yeah.
but it still becomes a thing where yes, it's a capital expense over operational. Now, with that said, I've heard one of the podcasts that I like is .NET Rocks, and these two guys will do geek outs, and one of the two guys lives in Canada, and he got so deep dived into DC lighting systems. He found the system before like Philips Hue and whatever, and the only way he could make his house like this, make this big old home improvement, was he had to deep dive into the whole thing and contact the company that was making these things and become certified to install these things so he could do the home improvement himself in his house. And he has all these very power efficient lighting switches and modules and a rack. Like he has a rack of servers, he's got a rack of DC lighting control equipment. And he's wired up his whole house with these really power efficient DC lighting systems. And they're about as if they're brighter, a little more control than the Hue stuff, but he's spent 10 times the amount,
Yeah.
right? His home renovation wasn't $400 in a worst case of getting all white bulbs. His thing was thousands of dollars in. And
Yeah.
then having to get certified and having to go away for certification at like headquarters of it and contact somebody to get that, and from where he lives, he's got other friends like this who have also gotten certified. Now he's got a little club, and that's fantastic. That's awesome. But for me, it's easier for me to just replace the bulb and
That's the thing.
not create disruption.
Mm.
Even if I owned this place or another place, would I do that? I think I'd only do that if I was building the house from scratch and I had more money than I needed, and it was like a non-issue. Then
Yeah.
maybe I would do something like that. But for now, these Hue systems are perfectly fine. You can do this to an apartment or a house. Okay, I free trained. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm gonna be doing a redecorating my maker space. So I
Yeah.
have that small room, and I'm thinking about taking out everything and then just putting in some actual benches where I can actually work on getting some good equipment for like electronics work. Like
Mm-hmm.
I now use a 25 euro soldering gun thing, right? Which is insane when you think about it, the amount of soldering I do. But I go through them like every 3 months or so. Then it breaks and I get a new one.
Yeah. So
But
the
I need to get like a new one. I have to spend some money to actually get that makerspace off the ground because I have so many projects I want to do, and then when I think about having to go into that room and then putting everything away, getting over the boxes of 3D printer filament and stuff, right? So I need to actually go
you need some
in
racks.
and
Yeah.
well, I have some storage racks in there, but yeah, I really need to make some more effort to actually get it right. So I it still has the original paint of the owner before me. Like there used to be some kid slipping in there, so it's like pink and green and stuff.
Oh, got ya. So you're not the first owner of your condo.
No, no, definitely not. This thing was built in like 1985 or something.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Well,
it's
I
okay,
mean,
but I just need to paint the there's like some wallpaper on there, and I
yeah.
just need to paint it. I'm gonna paint it black so there's no light reflection, so I can just play with the lights.
So do you
So
have a big old workspace, like a big old butcher block kind of table? That kind of thing.
no, right now
Okay.
there's a really sturdy table in there that I use my 3D printer for. Uh it's a it's like something from IKEA. It's like it has wheels on it, so you can just roll it out
Okay, got
if you
you.
want
It's a
to.
cart. Yeah.
Well, no, it has wheels on one side. It's like usually used for like barbecues type stuff, but it's
Right.
like
Okay,
really
got you.
sturdy. Like put it together, you know, it doesn't move when the 3D printer moves a lot, so that's good.
That's good.
And I've
Yeah.
got some old tables that I either put together myself, which I was kind of proud of at the time, but then they didn't turn out to be too sturdy.
Well, I mean, you can hit or miss on the IKEA stuff if you know what to shop and look
No,
at.
no, this wasn't an
Oh,
IKEA
really?
table. This is
Oh,
something I
okay.
put together from like I went to the local
Oh, you
home
you
improvement
you put it
store,
together yourself.
got some piece of wood, and got some
Got
legs,
ya.
and then
Yeah.
then I
No.
put it together.
Watch.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of getting one of those €100 Bershka tables from IKEA. They're very good. This is what I'm
Yeah.
sitting
Yeah.
at right now. They're very sturdy and
Mm-hmm.
they're black. They're good, but I think a little bit too wide for that room. So I might have to mess with it a little bit. But I need a real good like workstation for soldering, for making, designing stuff. A good chair, right? Everything needs to raise up a little bit, right? Improve that room, and then then I'll do the next room and the next room and the next room, and then I'll start
Right.
again from scratch.
I think this is really geek home improvement is the conversation is it's not so much like I'm going to build a new deck or put a new extension on my house or a swimming pool just for my dog. Like we're not talking about any of that. I think we're just talking about the things that are important about like improving the efficiency in our existing spaces as we have them today or better
Yeah.
utilizing them.
Well,
I got
there's
some
lots of stuff
racks.
like for example, you can there's an entire group on Thingiverse for like IKEA hacks, right? So you can
Yeah.
modify a couple of those lock tables
Right. Yeah.
and just stack them, and then you can make it like a 3D printer
Okay.
station out of that. I might
Yeah.
do that because I got a 3D printer. I can print the parts, put them
Mm-hmm.
all together. Actually, I already have like half of it done, so right, and then I can put like a vacuum on the back, so I can pump out all the air, so it doesn't all the tiny little things from the printer don't cause respiratory problems for me. Right? I don't want that to happen eventually. So
It's always good to find a friend who's going to help you do these things because I've often like gone off and done these things on my own, and like it's always good to have an extra hand even for some things. I built this like IKEA cheap pine thing, not because it was cheap but because it was easy to manage to get into a vehicle and get back to the house. And I like the smell of pine versus having some kind of metallic nightmare. I just thought, this is good. It wasn't about price. It was about just, the basics of it. And I put this rack together. And what did I do? I took the junk that was over here on this cart and I kind of clustered into just a piles over there. But it's an improvement. And then I started looking in the Sortimo stuff, and I'm like, oh, I could do this. And I need to know, what is Adam
Oh
said? Oh,
wow.
he's using Sortimo. And I'm like, and then I'm like, nope, that's $1,000 just
Yeah,
the
that's way
starting
expensive.
point before. And I was like, I don't need to do that right now. Like,
Well,
you can make
that's
small improvements in small amounts of money, right? Make it capital versus operational.
well. If you go to like the local home improvement store, there's lots of people that do. You can get those bins,
Mm-hmm.
like the blue plastic bins. Like they're basically just
Totes.
ABS things and just stand stat like just put them in.
Yeah, stack or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, I had roommates in the past in another place where they bought plastic cheap little things, thinking they were modular, and they're not. You can't put anything of real weight on them. They'll fall over. All it takes is someone to breathe
yeah,
on and go. You have a lot of stuff. Oh,
yeah.
crash.
Well,
You
if you
know.
want something that can actually drive around, you can just get one of those IKEA things. And there's so much stuff from IKEA that you can just get and then modify a little bit, put
Hmm.
wheels under it, and then just drive it around.
Yeah.
Right?
I
That's
the
it's amazing to me.
the irony for me is my sort of crafting creative workspace is sort of this studio area, which gets into a mess. And then the other day I started looking at cable boxes where you can have slits in them, and then you can like and put surge protectors or whatever, and
Yeah.
reduce crap and just put it into a little black or white box. And so I started looking at them thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to buy some of those, and I'm gonna do that to this studio here.
Hmm.
Just gonna have a few little white boxes, and all of the chaos of the cable is gonna go into a housing, and at least it's gonna be out of sight. And so I've been trying to minimize the chaos that I have around, even in this new place. Um, I reduced a lot of my behaviors, but I need to go further, right?
Yeah.
Because in the studio here, the people pick up their headsets and they move them around, and then they adjust their mic, and then all the dangling cables get knotted up somehow. And now it's just this cluster of a
Even though they're
hanging
plugged in,
wire
right?
mess. And even though I've duct taped them and wired Ethernet cables along the lines of the tables, and it doesn't look pretty, but it's functional, and I don't really care, how pretty it looks. It works, but every time I got to disconnect the cable or something, like I spend an hour trying to find how the hell do they go from this action of picking up the headphones and putting them over the mic pole and pulling them off into this mess? Because when I started, they were perfectly lined. All they had to do was pick them up, put them down, but they seem to want to screw around with them, and somehow they all knot up. I don't understand it. So I need to, again, it's an improvement effort. It's just that small thing that is improving what I have already and reducing the junk that I'm keeping,
Well,
boxes I'm storing, like all those little things, my lighting equipment. I may just have them open up as stands, around here
hmm.
in the basement, ready to go for me to pull them over and do a thing if I want to. And the same thing with podcasting and microphone gear. So there's, aside from lights, when I'm done with that, that will probably be the next targets for me. My only thought for you for your workspace is buy some, off Amazon, buy some $35 or whatever, several hundred meter lighting strips that you can
Yeah.
extend and whatever, and find a way to, when you're soldering, I know you need light, right? And you need even light without shadows. That's really important. So having good even light around is fine.
Yeah.
And lighting strips, no matter what their expenses, are perfect for that. Because most of them, no matter what color you have setting, they remember it in the controller. So when you power it back on, it goes right back to where it was last set.
Yeah. Well, I think that I might go and try out that IKEA stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
get one room filled with all the IKEA lights
Okay.
and like, get everything there, and then maybe see if that works. Kind of maybe look at it. It's not as
Yeah.
expensive as the U things, and they have the lights with the tiny
Oh
sockets.
yeah, no, the
Yeah.
Hue ones are real expensive. I have bookmarked a bunch, and I'll send them over to you. I found a couple. I found one that was sort of like a Kickstarter thing where it was just sort of this USB light,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not that very long, but I keep it in one of my jackets in case I need lighting on the go. They advertise as like they put it in a diffusion bag and whatever. It can become a lighting like a lantern, right? But it's USB power, so you know how
Yeah.
cheap and affordable battery packs and stuff are today. So that was why I wanted it. And you can extend it. It can attach to more of these things, and it was like $25 or something with the battery pack. Um, so I bookmarked a different set that are USB lights, USB powered lights, which
Yeah.
are much better than these sort of colorful, cheap things that are coming out of China left and right. So maybe I'll send those over to you and maybe you look at them. Maybe that's a better suggestion because if you look at the IKEA ones, they're really meant for like, putting something in a kid's room because kids think that's cool. I can make it blue and pink.
Yeah. Well, they have like a hub too. So
Do they really?
I just want to see if it actually works, test it out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like $84, right? So
Yeah, let me
maybe.
send you over the links that I have. I haven't tried them on myself, but I put thought into. I think that will be a much nicer lighting system because it's really easy to find or get like USB powered hubs
Yeah.
or chargers. And if I can chain a whole bunch of USB lights, um, against something simple, and then I can tack that up underneath a shelf or
Yeah.
around some part of my room or whatever. That seems to be more of the idea that I would want instead of like these. Like I got some that are under that I literally just cut a shipping tape, transparent shipping tape in the lip of underneath this one table. Because I was just trying them out. And I was like, all right, they're not that much. What could I do with it? But you have this sort of plastic controller thing with this strangly lead to the light system within as a
Mm.
strangly little infrared thing and a really cheap clearly just membrane remote, and
Yeah.
that's how you control it. And it just the lights are not cheap, but the whole thing just says I'm cheap.
Yeah.
Everything about me is made not to for you to kind of like stick in your computer and latch the module in and set it once and turn your computer on and I get powered. Like
Yeah.
that, this is just reeks that whole thing. Nothing elegant about its engineering or
Well,
its
I
design.
want to get this room like up to where I can just go with it for like 3 or 4, maybe 5 years, right?
Right? Yeah.
So I don't want to have to swap out all the LEDs that I taped in place
Taped is what.
in like a
Yeah.
week. All right.
Yeah.
I want to get something that actually works great. So I'm gonna maybe look into just getting some of these lights, try them out, and
Mhm.
then just putting in like sockets for lights in the room where I have enough space. And I'm gonna make a lot of videos about that. So I'm gonna just make maybe a video log about that. That might be fun. Just before, middle, after.
Yeah. Um, the only thought that I wanted to complete because I allowed myself to go on a tangent. I didn't mean to.
Yep.
But that's the free trade. um, so the power of like these lighting systems or these Internet of Thing home improvement things is the integration factor. We mentioned if
Mm.
then this that. Um, so I mentioned like I have Alexa connected up to a timer. So if the timer goes off, it knows to trigger a certain set of blinky lights. So that's kind of nice. I too have my porch light go on a certain time, but I just have that directly programmed in Hue instead of doing it through the if then this that trigger. Even though
Yeah.
that one's a little smarter because it's supposed to check your weather systems in your area and say oh well sunrise was at this time and know when to turn on.
Yeah.
Um, but the one I have is just wired up to a certain time. So recently, it's still been light out, even though it's still that time. So sometimes the porch light is on when I get home, and it's probably been on that way for a few hours. Um, but to that point, it's the integration factor that's really really nice. You can kind of work these things together intelligently. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think,
Well,
me to be able to walk in a room and just, I don't even have to look for the light switch. I could be carrying groceries, or I could have my arms full of stuff, and all I have to do is shout, Alexa, turn lights on, and lights are on in half a second. And and if you rig them up with the motion sensors that that a lot of these places have, you can do some you can build some systems where when you walk in or when there's motion, to make sure that lights are turned on.
Yeah, I would just like to just do everything myself, right? So I'd like to, get some Arduinos, get some everything under control, just hook up everything, and maybe even build an Internet of Things like a gateway type thing for if this then that, right? Maybe with maybe a Raspberry Pi or something.
Yeah. So John, let me ask this. That's your hope. But here, let me ask this.
Do you have time for that?
Imagine your age today. When do you think you would actually ever complete that, even if you were focused on it? Figure about 10 years?
No.
And then at that point, you will have lost interest. You'll say, you know what, it was just cheaper for me all the money I spent, it was just cheaper for me to buy like somebody who did this professionally.
Yeah, but doing that and just giving up straight away is like the way for it not to happen, right?
Right, so. I got that. Also, you're not in your 20s anymore, right? So if you're 20 and you want to do this because it's really for you and it's a learning experience, you already kind of know how to do this stuff. I think it's just a matter of you executing on it, right? And
I'm gonna do it with my makerspace, because that's
right.
The thing for the makerspace, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that's basically my biggest home improvement thing that I got planned. Just getting that off the ground, because now it's just a room with lots of junk in it, and a 3D printer.
Yeah.
Actually, 3D printers with like 2 of them are half completed. It's like so much stuff to do.
Yeah, so I am almost finished the long game on my lights, and I could just drop the money now and get it done, but I didn't want to do it. I want to do it in small pieces, right?
Yeah.
And when I started, I looked at the long cost of them. I'm like, you know what? I can just do this in small ways. And most of them I put the white bulbs in. I didn't need to put color ones in. And only because of Artemis and for some stuff did I put color light bulbs in. And again, it took several months. I think I started this effort in October. And I started with getting all of the Amazon Echoes in the house. And I only bought 3 of them. My roommate bought another one for himself. But I will tell you there's an advantage. When I'm down here, I can turn off the porch light without ever having to go load up an app and look, right?
Yeah.
Or loading up a website and look. I can just say turn off because I know my roommate's coming, or I know it mistakenly went on and I'm down here editing and it's too early and it's still bright out. I can turn my lights off and on. I can turn my bedroom lights on, because I know I'm going to be walking up there. So, I mean, I think, if you're going to make these kind of changes, I'm making the geek ones first. And then once I'm done that, I'm going to work on trying to clean up the existing mess, right? And then my next phases are really organizing all these other things that are important parts, but I just sort of have them in piles. I call them bachelor piles over here on a cart or whatever. And then start taking a look at how to get rid of minimizing stuff that I don't use anymore. Like I don't use that surround system anymore. It's fantastic, but I don't use it anymore, and it's just sitting here collecting dust. So, you know what? Maybe I'll give it to my stepbrother. He'll find more advantage. I don't use that thing over there anymore. And so part of my home improvement is also cleaning up and minimizing.
Getting rid of stuff.
Getting rid of stuff. I mean, I have tons of CDs that are in the back there that I've told myself for 20 years. We're going back this far. I'm going to MP3 everything. I was MP3ing back on my Power Mac in 90... it would have to be after I graduated, so 95, 96, when one MP3, one 4-minute song could take an hour to MP3, and I did it for a while, and then I fell out of step. It's just much easier for me to give these DVDs away to somebody who's going to find value or sell them, and then just go ahead and rebuy all that music, which is mostly I forgot that I bought it. So part of my improvement cycle is improving my behaviors and the chaos, not just, the physical, reorganizing my life so it's simpler. Because that geek side of me is important too. After I redid the rack, it's so easy for me to find a battery. After I reorganized some of these other things around here, it's so much easier to do stuff. All it takes is something small. And then
Clean
you
it
ask
up.
yourself, it cost me $30 to do that one thing. Why didn't I do this for the last 5 years? I've been like stressing and agonizing over something stupid because I was like unwilling to spend the $30. So, I mean, that's it. That's my final notes on that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else?
I
for
see your
home
lights went out.
improvement? My lights went out. Well, the sun is about
Is
to
going
set.
down.
I think. Yeah.
The one thing I guess because we'll never talk about this. So back in 2000, I rented a house with a friend of mine, a high school friend of mine, and so we were good friends. We were both nerds, both programmers, and we had more than one computer. And that was a house that you saw, the first time you met
Yeah.
me. And so one of the things we did is back then there wasn't any of these hue lighting systems. There was just standard bulbs. There was X10, and there's been a tremendous amount of improvement, which is what these these lighting systems are intercommunicating with today. But I had bought a bunch of these X10 devices, which is
Yeah.
again technology as far back as the 70s. And there was a site that probably still exists. It's more spammy than it should be, called I think Smart House or smarthome.com. And I bought a ton of these devices, and they came out with this little serial port adapter. And they had these cheap little battery powered X10 motion sensors. So between him and I, we wrote software, and he had an extra server, and he put a database on it. And what he did is he stuck one of those serial port mice on it, and we connected up all the motion sensors that are also kind of wireless. And we stuck them in each room, and he built a piece of software that monitored what they did, and then he associated a bunch of light sockets that had the lights connected to each other, and then what you would do is you walk in a room, and half a second later the lights would go on. And after 20 minutes or something, there was no movement. He had his system just go through and clear out the zones, just turn stuff off. And because it was on a database and through a piece of software that was sitting on a Windows box just monitoring, we went ahead and we built a website. And he drew a little schematic. And so we could turn the lights on and off remotely.
Yeah.
And for us, this was year 2000. We did this.
Yeah.
And the cost was about the same. And then when he left, he took all his crappy X10 devices, and he took all of my X10 devices and all the motion sensors, and I think he left me with a bunch of cheap ass X10 devices. He just and he took his box with all the software and source code on it, and it was gone. Now, could I rebuild it? Sure. Did I? No.
No time.
I didn't. But back then, and then eventually, I think Smart House did come up with a piece of software that you could run on a dedicated box to do very similar to what we were doing. So for me, this stuff is not new, and I learned that I could do it, and it wasn't hard for me to do. And maybe we could have made a company out of it, and maybe we would have been, but maybe a lot of ifs. But we didn't. We just were geeks doing our thing. And that's exactly it. And I had people that when I think I had my surprise birthday party at for my father or something at at the house at the time, and he had a lot of his friends were saying, "Wow, that's really cool, man. How do you get that to do that? Oh, we should make a business out of it. We should market this." And I was like, "No," because I knew back then, even if I started a business, it couldn't replace the full-time job that I had. So none of this is new to me. but it's cool, and I'm glad I'm doing it again.
Mm.
2 decades later.
My lights are gonna turn on in like maybe a minute or so.
You hope.
Because I have if this then that hooked up. Oh, yeah, I hope indeed. Because
yeah.
there was like a moment where it turned on my lights at like midnight because there was some sort of bug in if this then that,
Mm-hmm.
and then that caused some issues.
The only downfall to this is you got to leave your light sockets on, right? Unless you
Yeah.
replace them with like and keep in mind that Philips Hue is what I went with, what you went with. It's not the only one in the game. There's what LFX is in it too. You can, like I said, you can find Leviton is another one, I think. There's a whole bunch of them, all trying to. I mean, eventually I'm gonna buy an Ecobee, thermostat. I decided that the Ecobee is a better product than the Nest. I'm eventually gonna, do all that stuff, and I will eventually follow through, but I'll do them, every few months.
I think that with the new thing from IKEA coming up, I think that because they're a lot cheaper than the used and the other products, I think that they're gonna make a big dent in that, and then more people will have things like that. And more people will have things that are hooked up, and there will be more targets for exploitation.
Yeah, I will. I will say one thing, that yes, they're more expensive than average, but they're fantastic. The solution is very solid, and so that's the thing about it. And so for me, that's what was important, right? Is this the Cadillac of these devices? No, but it's not. There's nothing cheap about these devices.
They're well built,
and the fact that in the bulb they have all the electronics. Like when I heard about the DC lighting geek out, like I got a real set of insight of how difficult this is to make your lights fade, phase down gradually. And it's a lot more effort than you realize. And the fact that they were able to put that in, and you know what? These lights could be on for hours, and I can go touch them and pull them out, and they're just warm. Where if I did that with a standard light, I'd burn my hand. Yeah. So I don't think there's anything cheap about it. But you can lower your cost if you look at alternatives. So, but I've also seen videos from other friends who have the LFX ones and the Hue ones, and you can see how crappy the app is in LFX by comparison, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's not like the only people in the game, right? There's plenty of options. You can make it cheap for yourself, but get started, try it out, see if you like it.
Just want to warn people that the more stuff you put in your home, the more stuff that's controlled by apps and things. Right. Just imagine the company that owns it goes out of business or something. You don't want something in your house that can burn your house down. So like smart stoves or smart whatever. Imagine somebody else getting control of that and just doing stuff with
I'm not going to go as far as buy a smart fridge and a smart microwave that has cameras in it.
For like lighting, this is good, right? This is okay. If somebody hacks into that and then just messes with your lights, just you unplug it and then suddenly you just use the lights for the lights.
I think you would. I think you would enjoy two things about. I think you would definitely enjoy the Alexa. It's imperfect. Maybe the Google Home would be a better option for you. Yeah. But the only problem is if you're paranoid about the always listening aspect of it, it's really just in the hardware. It's not like it's recording and streaming all that stuff out. So
there it goes.
It's like dashboard cams. It's listening to catch the response and process it and send it up when it needs to catch. Otherwise, it's not like spying on you in that aspect.
Okay, I think that was enough home improvement for today. We got some fun links, right?
You do. You definitely got one.
Oh yeah, I got the first one. Oh, okay. So there's a series. I think it was made for NASA. It's the Sagan series. It's like a series of music with Sagan talking over it. So, and some video stuff. Polymatic.link/4R. It's pretty nice looking. So
There was
Just go check it out.
Yeah, there was a guy who sort of the modern version of this. He did this for Discovery for a little bit. I forget the guy's name, but they would take stock footage,
Yeah.
like from Getty Images or something. It was part of their how they funded it. And this guy who is like has a doctorate and is sort of Neil deGrasse Tyson like when he gets off the amazement of the universe, that kind of thing. It was well done, don't get me wrong, but he's, his enthusiasm is very well trained, calculated. But so when I saw this, I think the audio is a snippet from the series called Cosmos, which was, I think, something in the 80s, which I don't really remember, seeing when I was younger. I definitely watched the Neil deGrasse Tyson version that was, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And so I think this was like that with that audio, but with more modern stock footage of things. So it's neat. It's worth watching. It's only a couple minutes or something like that.
Well, there's also one with Richard Feynman, and I think that one's even better. I think I should have.
There's a couple of those where they took interview audio, I believe, from him, where he's just ranting, like I just ran or you just rant, and then in some kind of interview, this is not the era of podcasting, or up on a live event. And then they just put amazing looking stock footage all over it and make YouTube videos out of it. And those are awesome. I like when I see stuff like that. So I got one. This was, I think, trending for a little bit on YouTube, at least in the US. Make your own iPhone in China. So the guy went and made his own smartphone, basically. I think that's how I read it. Maybe he changed the title.
Well,
but
I
I thought
got
it was
parts for an iPhone from all sorts of places.
Yeah, he was living there, and so he figured out how to, make his own iPhone. He made an iPhone 6, and it's not the most modern phone, and he'd been working on this project and effort of building it for like over a year. Of just sort of cobbling this thing together. So this goes back to you, and you're like, oh, I want to do all the geek stuff, but you could. You absolutely could. I have confidence you will.
I looked at this video, and what I saw mostly is just him trying to buy all the different parts that he needs.
Right.
Right. So he didn't build a logic board for this, right? So
I thought by the headline that I was going to see some guy going to China trying to build a smartphone, and they were going to do all the electrical engineering design work and get it, fabricated and go through the same sort of Shenzhen process that everyone does for their Kickstarter. Like, I thought that's what I was going to watch. Instead, it was a guy who was kind of went to live there, and for him to accomplish this, all these spare parts are available, whether legal or not. You can buy them in China, and there is a whole sort of side industry. I mean, massive side industry there, serving up, all these quality parts or whatever that were made for iPhones, but now iPhone 6s aren't as popular anymore, whatever. So they have spare parts. So, so he bought all the spare parts and eventually soldered together, the logic boards and all the small things, which was not a small feat on its own. So if you guys haven't seen it, it's Polymatic.link/4U, as in universe.
Okay. There's a guy that makes lots of dangerous stuff. He made a dangerous spinner.
Yes. Yep.
If you're a male and you look at the video, you might cringe a little bit, but Polymatic.link/4S. So there is some I think it's hot dogs that get molested with the spinner. There's a spinner that has like razor blades on it.
Yeah.
So lots of fun.
Gianni, right? Yeah, I think I shared some of this stuff in the past.
Because he can.
Yeah, because he can. Because I can. That's like, why, you ask? Because I can. And it's funny because he does, it's like he's enabled to do all these things because he's got the tools for whatever reason, and then he just stuck a camera and some lights on it. And
I've got another video later on. So
yeah. So what was the Polymatic on that?
Polymatic.link/4S.
Okay. So you live in the Netherlands, but you don't live in Amsterdam.
No.
Have you seen the movie The Fault in Our Stars?
No.
Okay. So that's
Do I have
part
the book?
of
Yes,
of,
and I haven't
of
read the book.
Right. Okay. But you know who the Vlog brothers
Yeah.
are. So Hank Green was in Amsterdam because I think the last time we were talking, VidCon was going on in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
VidCon Europe, I guess. And so the direct result of it was that he, I guess, through Snapchats or whatever and some of these YouTubes, I kind of knew that he was still there for at least another week or so. And while he had free time, he went around Amsterdam and whatnot. And he focused on this video that really, I thought it was just well said, well written, well scripted at the very last little bits about the relationship of his brother and the way his brother's, things that he knows about his brother and his brother's fascination, and how he kind of wrote some of that into a book, and how that was made into a movie, and then how that has a larger impact on the world over this just anonymous bench that was in the movie. That probably John Green had sat on and was inspired by at some point when he spent the time in Amsterdam writing this book. So I just thought this was a very kind of touching, nice little video. It's only a few minutes long, but really stay with it towards the end if you can feel impacted by this at all. And it just shows sort of a larger picture of how the internet and our culture is very interconnected. And that's polymatic.link/4W.
He also did a video of the Amsterdam, like the Dam, which is like
the canal, yeah.
Yeah, no,
lapse.
it's actually like a large area where you can just walk
Oh,
around.
yeah.
There was like a fair going on, so he made like
Yeah.
a time lapse.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that he released that the other day.
Yeah.
He did another one where he did one of the canals as a time lapse, and I was going to share it, but I thought John's not going to care. It's like for him every day.
I know what that looks like.
Yeah. So anyhow, so that was polymatic.link/4W. Just in case I didn't say it.
Okay, so there is something where I like to go, which is KFC. I shouldn't go there, but
No, you shouldn't. You think that's chicken?
There is a KFC being built 200 meters from my house, which is weird. Anyway, so there's a guy that built a KFC bucket-winged airplane, an RC plane, Polymatic.link/4T. It kind of works.
It took him a while to figure it out, right? What's the effect that it has? I forgot already. Starts with an M.
I don't remember.
There's an effect that makes this possible. He explains it in the beginning of the video.
Yeah.
They went through a lot of touch and go on this, but they made it successful. It's long enough that you could watch it, or you could skip through it towards parts of it.
Yeah. So it's Polymatic.link/4T.
Okay, so this guy, I've shared at least one of his videos. I think I called it anime, but whatever. This guy, Sang Yi, I think Sangwan. I got his name wrong. He does a bunch of things. I finally subscribed. I think he goes by ProZD. But every once in a while, he has these 20-second little snippets where he does something.
On Tumblr a lot.
Yeah, he does these little brilliant little videos, and he's got a great kind of deep voice. So anyhow, polymatic.link/4xed, because I've watched his videos in the past, whatever. YouTube puts it on my homepage every once in a while, and that's another short video. All the geeks will like it.
Yeah. There was a detective guy, right?
Yeah, detective guy, yeah.
Okay, so I've been reading some books, and this is something we probably at some point need to talk about. There is a book series called Bobbyverse. It's about a guy named Bob, and he sells his company and gets lots of money. Then he decides to have his head frozen in case of his death.
Okay.
only for him to get hit by a car like in the same week.
Yeah.
Then he wakes up in the future. His life has been forfeit, and well, he's now property of the state, and he becomes a von Neumann probe, and he has to go and discover stuff in the universe. It's actually a very good book.
Hmm.
It was being promoted by Audible a lot on my Audible suggestions, and I was like, yeah, fine, I'll just buy it once. Okay, I'll buy it. And then I liked it so much. Then the next book came out this week, so I read through that in like no time. It was done so fast. So that's Polymatic.link/51, and it's a very good book. It's a very nice book to get into if you want to get into audiobooks. It's like 9 hours for both books, so 9 hours for the first, 9 hours for the second.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Cool. Yeah. No, I hadn't heard of it until I read that. I looked at that. Your link. So I never saw the movie Passengers in the theater,
I
and the only
haven't
thing.
either.
And I had a bunch of friends who saw it at the time when it was in the theaters, and I was like, "Oh, well, that would, you want to, and like, when someone's gone and seen it and they haven't come back and say, "Oh, I love the film," you don't say, "Oh, I just was excluded somehow, wasn't thought of," uh, and that's fine. I didn't take it as a personal attack, but I was disappointed I didn't see it in the theater. So with that said, I eventually bought it on Amazon Prime. And I liked the movie well enough. Is it perfect? No. Is it well produced? Is it definitely a box office level production? It is. And one of the people that I follow on YouTube that goes into these guys go and often do these little essays and deep thought little videos. Nerdwriter did a thing where he's like, Passengers rearranged, which appeals to me for two reasons. One, I've seen the movie, and I understand his point of view of how you can modify it and change the whole story for the benefit to keep the audience not bored so much or memorized by your favorite actor or actress in it, or appeal to just the sci-fi aspect of you, right? You could better balance the film. And that's what this is. It's just taking a look at, from the perspective of if you rearrange Passengers as a movie, looking at it from his perspective as a writer, how would this change the movie? Would it do it for the benefit of it? And Polymatic.link for why. I think it's definitely, for me, it appeals as somebody. It's not necessarily a writer, but as who used to do a tremendous amount of video editing and kind of telling stories by way of that medium, and knowing that most of the effectiveness of a movie or a piece of production is really in the hands of the editor, not so much as the director or the writer. It's how you orchestrate the symphony of things together is done by those people. Surprisingly, and that's only a thing that's like inside baseball that only few people know about. And I think now we have a generation of editors. More people realize this is the case. Editing has a lot to do with the effectiveness of a production. So it appealed to me from that perspective because that's a side thought I used to have a lot about AMV editors versus other music editors, that kind of stuff. When I used to do that in that community. The people who make good AMV edits, those creators, I would always assert the point that they're better editors than the people who made a rap video where they're just flaunting how great their life is. Right,
Well,
that music video has nothing to do with the substance of what they're watching. That kind of thing. Like, those people are professionally editors. Oh, they're better than. No, they really aren't. They aren't really telling you a story. They're just, slapping stuff together that's visually interesting that has nothing to do with the music that you're hearing. So anyhow, Polymatic.link/4y.
Okay. There is an interview with the writers of The Expanse in 2011.
Yeah.
Polymatic.link/53. It's kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah.
It's like from what they've accomplished now. Have you seen the last episode for
I did,
the
and I
season?
saw Adam Savage in it.
It was like,
But then
yay!
I'm like, what the? Oh, we gotta wait a year now.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
the question is,
I've got to wait longer.
will Adam Savage resurface as a primary character, or is he just gonna be, lost?
Do you want me to tell you?
You can tell me not on mic so that you don't ruin it for others.
Okay.
Yeah. So do the Polymatic. What's the link?
Polymatic.link/53.
Yeah. So, all right. So this is just a college humor video. It's appealing. They do one that's appealing. I think it's sort of not safe for work, but Polymatic.link/4Z. If you worked in corporate America, no matter what your age is, I think there are various aspects about this that you could definitely understand. Polymatic.link/4Z. If you've ever found your career or something you could relate to feeling like a corporate zombie, you can relate to this, I think.
Okay, well, if you're a corporate zombie, or you have corporate zombies near you, you might need one of these. There's a guy that I linked earlier with the
Yeah.
dangerous spinner. He also made a lethal nerf firing thing. So, yeah, that's the other thing. Polymatic.link/54. Did you see this?
I have. I watch it. I'm subscribed to this guy, yeah.
Poor guy, man. The
Oh,
guy that
yeah,
gets shot with the
well,
Nerf gun. Oh,
yeah. So,
wow, that must hurt.
I have to ask John, why?
Because he can. Well, I should do this. I should do something like this. That'll be, well, I can build this. So
First, you got to work on your workshop.
Yeah. Got to do that first.
Yeah. Okay, so this one was just interesting. I like when this Julie Noak, I guess Noak is how you say her last name. She shows up on Tastemade. I don't watch like the cooking channel here in the U.S. And it's usually a dangerous thing because it makes you hungry and makes you want to cook. But with that said, I am subscribed to Tastemade because every once in a while they do these sort of small seasons of shows that are sort of serialized where they do these little quick things. Julie Noak has like a show where she does something, and every once in a while it's kind of neat, and she's kind of funny. She's a little all over the place, but I found her recently. I found her actual own YouTube channel, which is probably how she got hired, and so she puts out a video or two, like Sunday and Thursday or something like that. So anyhow, because of that, I'm getting suggested old videos. And she did this one that was for, I guess, Patreon supporters. For her and her husband are doing films, or a film maybe a year or more ago. And she did pancake art, which was kind of cool. The art's not great, but it's still kind of neat how she made a pancake out of, Patreon supporter faces. So there was 3 of them. And this one I think is probably the better one. Polymatic.link/50. Okay.
50.
Yeah,
That'll
50.
also work. Okay. I got one other video. There's a guy called, well, his channel name is Electroboom. I've linked him before. There's lots of people on YouTube that have like free energy device, blah blah blah. Well, he just basically deconstructs all these guys. So go look at this. If you have somebody that is into that kind of stuff and is like, yeah, there's free energy devices. No. Polymatic.link/55.
Awesome. I think we definitely have learned.
He's pretty funny.
People don't realize when you explode something, it just goes from chemical energy to kinetic energy. It doesn't go away. It just gets transformed into another form. So, energy doesn't come out of nowhere. Every sci-fi film, I took it from the other dimension, right? You gotta siphon it from somewhere else. And, physics is not very efficient at creating energy. So, anyhow.
Well, that's basically his point in this video, but go check it out.
Okay, cool. I will. Okay, so one thing we totally forgot because we talked about Mastodon last week, right? So 2 weeks later, what
Yeah.
is your impression of Mastodon, the phenomenon that everyone was all excited about, and we were excited about for a moment?
Yeah, I think that's a good description.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm still engaged with it. I haven't given up. The only problem that I'm having, and this is what happens when you have early start things that really. I mean, there are more than one person that's contributing to to the open source project. But when it's primarily being orchestrated by one person, it's a lot more work than you realize. The one thing that would have been nice from the get go, at least on the timelines, would be a ability to specify which regions,
yeah,
like
yeah,
say like I only want to look at French and Spanish, right? And make that a preference option.
yeah. For right
I think
now, our entire timeline, local timeline, is Japanese because
yeah.
apparently a lot of Japanese people went into our instance because
Hmm.
the other
And
instance was broken, so they got into this one because there are lots of people here, and it's
yeah,
fine. But I would like to be able to select like maybe even
right.
like character sets. Though it's very hard for me to discover people because I don't speak Japanese. I don't know
Right, yeah.
what they're talking about. I can't even
Every
communicate
once
with
in a
them.
while, I will see somebody interesting who's like says something in English and says something in Japanese. But yeah, no, the timeline gets flooded because it's all these different languages are getting dominated at certain parts of when I go in. I don't go in during my day. I only go in at night. So, sadly, what I've been doing, the tactic I've been handling is I've been just muting people that are being noisy, and
Yeah.
there are definitely people being jerks, no matter the language, and I mute them anyways. The weird thing that's been happening lately is I get a lot of people from one instance following me, and it's mostly Japanese, and I'm like, why are you
Is that the
following me?
Pawupnet.net?
PowerNet or
Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so the way I'm just handling it for now is I don't go into the Fed. If you go to the federated timeline, it's rain falling. So look, I think there's still power in this, and it just happens to be our second instance became the second largest instance in the Mastodon
Yeah.
network of instances. However, what I've also heard though is people that got onto the main node have said that it's a whole different tone. They don't have that noise there, but it's not much of a community. It's a whole different tone
Yeah.
there. So like, there's really that's a massive instance too, right?
Oh,
But
this one's bigger.
uh,
It's like the biggest one.
what ours?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what it is now. I last I heard it was like the second largest, but yeah. So you had mentioned that you thought that a lot of the Japanese people were angry. When I've done some translation, no, I just think there are just a lot of people who happen to be Japanese coming in, and they're just flooding our timeline.
Well,
Um,
Pawu.net got blocked a bit for because they were spamming some
oh,
mm,
really? Oh,
yeah
well,
some
they've
some
been
very questionable stuff. So the
so
entire instance got blocked.
So even though I've set my post to be public, but I've set my account to be private, people who want to follow me have to, I have to authorize it. And so Paul.net was just flooding in. I was getting a ton of these requests. And so maybe the first couple I said okay if someone was interesting, but then I just started shutting them down. Like, I'm not blocking them, I'm just saying no. And it's that's the only irritating part about it. It's like, well, why are you I made one comment to somebody who was whining and complaining about it, and I just replied, I said, I just mute them. Anything that's real noisy and I can't deal with anymore, I just mute them. So I'll go in for every time I see something, and I'll just mute. Boom,
Well,
boom, boom,
apparently it
boom.
is very big in Japan. So there's
Yeah.
mstdn.jp, which is like 48,000 subscribers,
Oh, you're looking at
users.
the instances
Yeah,
now?
and then Mastodon.cloud is now the fourth.
Oh,
So
okay.
it used to be the first on the
Yeah.
list.
So I just hope everyone move over there and just stay out of our. It's not even that. I mean, we're sharing with people who are French. I see Spanish come in. That's not really a big deal to me. It's just that the people that are speaking Japanese are like blasting long, huge, many of them by like a tenfold post, boom, and so all of a sudden is every once in a while you see something you can recognize,
Well,
And
you need what Mastodon needs is some filters on specific
right.
character sets, maybe even country or local
Hmm.
things. Like you only want stuff
In
from,
our
for example.
profiles, we're asked up front, what's your language, right? So I wish that was taken into account for, what you want to filter, and then
Yeah, but
your
then you get into the situation where you have like a Twitter where things get filtered, and I think that's one of the reasons why Mastodon exists, because not filtering stuff,
oh,
right?
right. I don't have a problem with it. I just want to be able to make that a user preference. That's it.
Well, there is a thing, of course, because the thing that what got Pabu blocked was the not so good images that are even
Right.
illegal
Not
here
safe
in
for work
Poland.
stuff.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, anyhow, but so I mean, I haven't lost faith in it. I just know that there's going to be some growing pains it's got to go through.
yeah,
And I
definitely.
I think most people that were sort of early adopter a week or two ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, have probably understand that that's the way these things work. Because if you've been able to be part of something that's starting and be there at the early age, yeah, it's not perfect. As a programmer, I'm like, why would you? I don't know. I get closer to perfect. It doesn't take me that hard. It's not that hard to build things out of the gate near perfect. It's just all the like, how do you handle when you have this scenario stuff that doesn't get
Yeah.
accounted for? And so if you lately, because of Silicon Valley and all this sort of second wave of I'm going to really call it Web 3.0 and the Twitterverse stuff, what people are doing is they're just deploying not even half baked, like barely baked, stuff, and then it catches on by wildfire, and then they just painfully get it to be half baked. And if investors are still around, they make billions of dollars, and then they hire people to make it fully baked,
And then it
after
gets
a
sold to
couple
Google.
years. And then they sell it to Facebook or Google or whatever, because they've built something that is worthy of purchasing. But for me as a developer, like, it's not like I sit on my butt for a month and then release something. Like, it just, instead of it taking a day for me to build something that I'm enthusiastic about, I just wait until the second day or the third day where it's, yeah, this is stable. Then I release it. Where a lot of these
Well,
things,
I think that's a little bit unfair because they've
they've been
been
doing
working
this
on
for
this for
months.
months. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is
So,
not something that's released early or something. It's
right.
just that it just suddenly somebody saw it and was like, okay,
Right,
let's try
and
this,
boom,
and then it
yeah.
blew up.
So, but that wasn't really an attack at Mastodon. That was just more about like these early adopter things. Like, so if you've been part of this, saying, "Hey, help me beta test this," you've been part of those things where they didn't even half bake it and release it to beta testers to say, "See, it's near perfect, right? Tell me what's wrong with it." Oh,
Yeah.
well, a lot's
Kind of
wrong with
reminds me
it.
of the thing that they did on This Is Only a Test this week,
Yeah,
like a tested podcast.
yeah. So I
They
mean,
were ranting about the what was it, some sort of fruit juicer,
oh
and then
really?
yeah,
Oh,
that
the
was
$400
yeah,
juicer.
yeah, that one, yeah.
Okay,
That
yeah.
rant is pretty good. Should probably listen to that.
Yeah, well, it just goes to the point that, like, as someone who's been doing it long enough, and I guess our skills of being able to execute is much quicker than somebody just starting out to do this. So
Hmm.
I understand it. However, those who've been successful who are just starting out to do this and did the very thing I griped about are billionaires by comparison to us.
Yeah.
So with that said, uh, you know, just wanted to make sure that, like, I wasn't attacking Macedon. I was just attacking all these sort of
Yeah.
being part of being asked to help with things, and then seeing how half baked they are, and then barely baked, and then look, it's fine when you're asking for beta testers, and it's fine when you're trying to sell it and see it's done. So you just have, I've been accommodated to or reaccommodated to putting up with things that are need important tweaks, right? To
Yeah.
me, at least, having a region preference that the user can opt into is, I think, is important.
Yeah, but I guess that stabilizing the platform is also very important.
Right, and I can tell you, I think he has recently, because I see the federated timeline just zooming. It's just scrolling by so fast. It's testing the
Yeah.
browser's capability to take the payload like that.
Yeah.
It's surprising. So yeah, that was it. I
Yeah.
just figured that we should give our opinions about it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good start.
At the very
It's
least,
filling up. There's
all
enough
that
people on right now.
international interest is definitely, I think, a good sign that other parts of the world are taking to this.
Well, you can use it as like an internal like social network, right? So you can just set up like a local one
Sure.
inside your company that doesn't communicate with the rest of the world.
Yeah,
you just do
but
that,
you could
so-
also do a Slack. Don't you think? I mean, Slack's got all of the stuff, and if you need a big team of people to just sort of chat with each other, not necessarily collaborate, Slack is perfect for that. You don't necessarily need Mastodon unless you're interested in it being a more public interface.
Yeah, maybe. I
Yeah,
don't know.
Slack
Anyway.
is way more baked in. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Slack is the right call for that, but you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can find our links at Polymatic.social. That's where you can find all our social links, including the Mastodon ones. Alan, where can they find you?
you can find me on Mastodon at CHAESECO or on Twitter at CHAESS.
And you can find me on Twitter, twitter.com/webdevy, WEBDEVVIE, and the same on Mastodon. Mastodon.cloud is my instance. Also the same thing for Alan.
Yeah.
And for feedback, you can reach us at podcast@Polymatic.media. It actually works this time. And our Twitter is The Polymatic. Our website is Polymatic.media. And I hope you tune in next time. Bye-bye. Bye.
The music in this episode was by Say Uns. It was licensed under Creative Commons Attribution and found on the Free Music Archive. You can find these tracks at shorter.com/PRK.